Alright guys, so we're working on a gas water heater, and as you can see, that gas valve assembly had a pretty good leak, and we're going to be changing that. And first thing you want to do is remove the thermocoupling. Well, first thing you want to do is cut the gas off, which is what I did, and make sure you have the proper tools. This is something you can do. Now, if you're not comfortable working with and around gas, call a qualified plumber, HVAC, or someone that can do the job for you. Gas is something that is very safe, to be honest, but when not done correctly, it can end very badly. So make sure that everything is off, no spark, no smoking, and you can get it done properly. And we're taking off now the assembly. Sometimes you might need to use a breaker bar, so to say, undo the P-trap or the sediment trap if you have the room. If not, leave on the sediment trap that you have and use that as leverage to remove the assembly. And once you get that out, you can start to drain the tank. Now, draining the tank is a little tricky. Once we get to that point, I'll kind of explain a little bit. Sometimes if your water heater is elevated above the bathrooms, it's going to be very difficult for the water to drain. So you might have to open you don't want to open the cold side on the water heater up top. What you want to do, if anything, if you're able to, you open the hot side, and you're going to be able to get more air in that's on the water heater itself. Or you might be able to open the pressure valve as well. Not release the pressure, but literally open that to get better air going in. So what we're doing here is blowing into the discharge tube. We're letting water out, and we had an airlock. Airlock is when the water is being stubborn, does not want to come out. And if your bathrooms are lower than the water heater, it's not going to help much. It's not going to be beneficial. So you're not going to be able to get the trapped air out, basically. So it has to be higher than the water heater. All right. So, but this does work. We were able to blow in it and get it down to the level safely before you can actually remove the valve assembly. If you prematurely remove that gas assembly, you're going to have a lot of water. It's going to make a mess. If you're good and if you're fast and if you're a professional, then you just undo it really fast and pop it back in. Of course, make sure you put your Teflon and all that stuff. But when you're doing this at a customer's house, you want to keep everything nice and dry as possible, and you don't want to be having any accidents. So drain the machine, get it done properly. All right, so we'll get to the other portion shortly, and I will talk about the airlock some more when it comes to getting the tank drained. All right, so now we're going to be putting back whatever you took off the old one, all your connections, and basically you might have to put that in a vise or something, depending on how tight yours is, like a monkey wrench. Now your sealant, I use that, and then sometimes I actually wrap the connection with Teflon and then add that to it. So it depends. If you have good thread seal, then you're good to go. Just make sure it's gas approved. And how much to torque, just don't cross thread. Once you get it started, snug it in nicely, and you should be totally fine. Just, make sure you have a good reference point to how much torque you want to put on that thing. Keep in mind that when it's time to remove it, you will have to remove it. So make sure you have a tool, adjustable wrench, and you might need to be able to put a breaker bar sometimes on the end of it to get it snugged properly. But your sealant is actually doing the sealing, so you don't have to over torque to get it to seal. Once you have the right amount of thread sealant, you're going to be totally fine. So get it snugged and you should be totally fine. And also keep in mind how you took it off and when you're putting it back on, so you have some kind of reference point, because it's no longer on the heater, so sometimes it might be a little confusing. And I like to use tape on this portion, and of course make sure it's gas rated. Just don't cross thread. This is pretty crucial. And once you get it nicely in, just keep torquing. And obviously you don't want to over torque, but you want it to be nice and snug. Otherwise you will get a leak. So you'll feel it once you keep turning and turning. There's a point to where you're going to feel it. It's a hard reference to give. You're just going to feel it. In fact, a good point is you count the amount of turns from your old one and you snug it basically back to that. Now it's time to put the gas on. And of course you don't use any Teflon on those. Those are all flared, so they seal perfectly on their own. Use 2 adjustables, and you don't want to put any pressure on the assembly as you tighten. Now it's time to reconnect. Now if you're putting in a new thermocoupling, you might want to double check and re-snug. Sometimes when they're new, they need to be seated in. So what you want to do, turn the gas on once you have both of them connected, and turn the gas on, use your soap bubble, and check and see if you see any bubbles. You can also press the pilot, which is going to activate the fuel, and see if you see any bubbles. So keep that in mind, and as you go along, by now, once that's in, you can turn the gas on once you're done snugging up. And right now, go ahead and turn the water on so you can check for leaks from your assembly. Hopefully everything's good. Turn the water off, disconnect the drain line going out. And I like to use my gas leak detector as a just quick reference point, but nothing beats your soap. Soap is very localized and it tells you exactly where the leak is. Now, when you're tightening this, keep an extra hand on the other side of the assembly as well. Do not put any torque on that assembly. You can damage it. So we're pretty much buttoning up, but now we're going to be checking, turning on the gas, and we are going to check again for leaks. Checking for leaks is one of the most important part of the job. You don't want to rush it, and you do not want to have any leaks. Leaks are super, super important. I also check even joints that I did not do in the event. So now we're getting ready to light or checking for leaks, because that coupler, now you see we're lit. Now I like the unit to run for a little bit and then again check for leaks, because sometimes when it's a new coupler it has to be seated, so don't be in a rush. See that? It's a tiny leak. Alright, so that leak was fixed and we wiped our joints off. All is well. And that pretty much covers this. Alright guys, thanks for watching. And I wanted to say real quick, on getting the air out of your lines, you can also loosen the top of the water heater. It does have the anode rod. Sometimes you can actually open that and that will release the air. Thanks for watching.